Welcome, welcome, welcome to Theater Guild's production of I Am Me First. I can't thank you enough for supporting this program. This is the third time we've done I Am Me for Theater Guild. You guys come out every time and support us. And we were worried about this, are people going to come out in this atmosphere? And you did, and thank you. I can't thank you enough. I'm Barb Torino. I'm the founder and director of the I Am Me First initiative. And I'm so proud of this cast who has worked so hard to put this together. Now, if you're not familiar with the I Am Me First program, what it is, it's an evening of stories. We ask volunteers to write a story about a significant time in their life, something that was impactful to their lives and has changed their lives in some way. We usually have a theme, and tonight's theme is, guess what? Love for Valentine's Day, and we have all different kinds of stories, but they're all about love, and they're all inspirational and wonderful. Our people who write and participate in this always say that it's such a cathartic experience for them to come up here and tell their story and be vulnerable. So I hope that this will become a tradition for Theater Guild, and when we do it again, some of you, come on and volunteer and take part. It really is a life-changing experience. And our audience always appreciates what these people do when they come up here and how they are so impactful and inspirational. So we hope you enjoy it. I do want to introduce my partner in crime here, who's helped me with this production. This is Ellie Rizzo.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. When I first heard about Barb's program, I was really excited. I've been a psychologist for 42 years. I'm tired. And any type of medium where a person gets the opportunity to express themselves is always a healing experience. So not only is she providing entertainment for the listener, she's providing that healing experience for the person who creates the story. And love is a really interesting theme. In my work, I've come to understand that love is really not a feeling. It's a process that contains all the feelings, a range of emotion, starting with ecstasy, joy, happiness, and also includes things like anger and sadness and grief. And I think you'll get a taste of the full range of the emotions from the wonderful participation of our actors tonight. Once again, thank you for coming and enjoy the show.
Creating the I Am Me First initiative started me on a road to self-love and acceptance. Allowing myself to be vulnerable opened up my world. I'm so proud of this movement and how it's helped so many others to learn to love the me that they are. Here's how it all started. The director called. "You got the part!" Oh my God, I got it. My dream role of a lifetime. Linda Lohman in Death of a Salesman. Oh shit, I got it. We'll call him back right now and decline. This part requires that you feel and emit emotions that are so far out of your range and experience, you'll need to do a blood-curdling scream. You've never screamed in your life. You had 2 babies and you never screamed. And you'll need to cry. What were you thinking auditioning for a part like that? Call him back right now. You're simply not good enough actor to pull this off. Stop kidding yourself. What a joke. No. Wait a minute. You can do this. You are Linda Lohman. You have lived her life. Just breathe. Well, I accepted the role. It was more than just a fabulous role. It was the start of the longest and most significant journey of my life. 30 years before that call, I suffered a very serious and traumatic event, and I just stopped crying and feeling. I remember the day when I found myself bawling in bed with the covers pulled over my head, and I said, "This is it. I'm staying here forever." Year after year, I was alive, but I wasn't present. I lived for my sons, but I moved through life without laughter or joy or even sadness, just numbness. Then came the offer to play the iconic role of Linda Lohman. So in preparing for the role of Linda, I realized that my life paralleled hers in so many ways. She was a devoted wife and mother, like me, sacrificing herself for her family. So to bring Linda to life, I had to dig deep, be vulnerable, and feel. And I had to cry. At first, I just pretended to cry, and it worked well enough, and I made the audience cry. And then, to my surprise, the last weekend, I did it. I cried, for real. But something was wrong. Linda cried in her life on stage. I cried for Linda, but Barb was still numb. I didn't cry. Why couldn't I cry? Years later, after my second marriage failed, I found myself now in my 60s, alone and lost, having a midlife crisis way past midlife. That's when I made the resolution to become the best me that I could be. A good friend helped me get started on the road to the real me. He challenged me to write, produce, direct, star in, and be the audience for The Barber Show. I had no idea what he was talking about. And he gave me an exercise to help open me up. Lo and behold, it worked. I cried. I really cried. And it was in that raw and vulnerable state at 63 that I wrote my first I Am Me story and started the I Am Me First community. I did the work on me, and now I face life complete with the joy and sadness and the challenge that it brings. Feeling and expressing my emotions is still hard, I won't lie, and I'm still doing the work. Oh, by the way, several years ago, I got to play Linda again. This time, both Linda and I showed up. She screamed and cried on stage, and I was finally able to cry, laugh, and feel on stage and on the real stage of my life.
I would like to introduce Sharon, who is a new member of Theater Guild and a first-timer with the I Am Me First team. She is a retired teacher who, after 30 years of service, continues to find creative ways to keep teaching. Knowing someone may benefit from her is what drives Sharon's passion. Sharon teaches Cooking the Easy Way classes at Lakeview Senior Center in Irvine. She says that it can be very rewarding to teach seniors.
The quality versus quantity of love. My first thought when I was asked to share a story about love was to share about my sweet dog, a beautiful little 4-year-old Maltipoo. She is the best unconditional love that I know. But then I started to think about the unconditional love that I have always shared with my 4 granddaughters, ages 9 to 18 years old. The wonderful times we've spent laughing, loving, playing, all the things that I've taught them, and how many wonderful, cherished memories that we've shared together. You know, how when my son and my daughter would ask me to watch them, I would really feel valued. But I've come to realize that the younger my children or grandchildren were, the more that they needed me. But the older that I get, and the more time I have, the more I seem to need them. So I've considered the question, how has love changed me? Well, I realize that my granddaughters are growing into adulthood, and one of them is already a young woman. So I know that pulling away is perfectly normal, but I can't help but feeling hurt when they don't reach out to me. You know, it is disappointing to initiate the contact because at times I feel like an obligation, even a burden. In retrospect, I know that they are living their own healthy and productive lives. And for this, I am blessed. But with each of my granddaughters, you know, I was going to say, isn't life's balance to keep evolving? So with each of my granddaughters, I've learned that in order to have a healthy relationship, I need to enjoy and not measure how much time we spend together. When they call me or they make time to see me, I'm delighted. And I've learned how to read their facial expressions because sometimes I have a tendency to ask too many questions or give my opinion when I'm not asked for it. So I appreciate also our relationship by realizing that it is the quality over quantity of time that we spend together. Yes, at times it does feel bittersweet. And I'm even a little lonely because obviously I would love to spend more time with them. But, you know, I don't dwell on that. Instead, I try to do away with my expectations so when I see them, you know, it's a bonus. Being retired does allow me all the time that I could need to indulge in the many interests that I was only able to dream about before I retired. So when I first retired 10 years ago, my calendar was really quite open. And today I'm happy to say that's quite far from the case, and it's full and I'm busier than ever. So walking the dog, swimming, dancing, gardening, cooking, playing games with neighbors. I even started a bunco group where I live. I volunteer with with seniors, and also do ESL with children. And all of these things keep me happy and fulfilled. So I also enjoy discovering the many new opportunities, which is one of the reasons that I'm here tonight at the Theater Guild. So now, don't get me wrong, my children will always be the joys and loves of my life. But at the same time, I'm still very excited about the wonderful and interesting adventures, the new I Am Me First opportunities awaiting me in this new chapter. Thank you.
This next story is entitled Like Cinnamon Toast. The author, Nicole Aloni, is a French-trained chef. She just moved into the village in June. I'm waiting for her to invite me to dinner. I hope she's listening. This piece is an excerpt from Nicole's one-woman show, La Grande Fromage.
I had an absolutely soul-crushing job in downtown Los Angeles, and one weekend, I decided to drive down to Laguna Beach, my hometown, to chill out with some old friends at their beach. They introduced me there to this guy, Ami, a friend of theirs who was also spending the weekend with them. And was he a nice surprise? He was gorgeous, tall. Loud voice, sorry. Tall, dark, and wearing a Speedo. So he was either foreign or gay, right? So we had some very cool conversations about everything from the local restaurant scene to politics, and it turned out he was as liberal as I was, and I was thinking, oh God, I hope he's not gay. This, by the way, in spite of the fact that a few months earlier, I'd sworn off dating forever, period. But still, I felt myself grooving toward him. And then I'd get a grip and pull back, you know, like one of those weird iguanas with the rolling eyes. I had to keep reminding myself that I was so done with men. I mean, I'd had a posse of boyfriends and one very brief marriage. And they all had one thing in common. Those guys saw me as a sort of a girlfriend starter kit. Somebody who needed some fine-tuning from them to be a really top-notch girlfriend. Right? Well, screw that. So, up close, I noticed that he smelled really good. Not like some bogus man's perfume, but like something good to eat, like cinnamon toast. So fighting the urge to lick this delicious man, I dove into the ocean instead, right? And as I'm swimming, I'm thinking, he is such a live person. If he starts calling me, it's not going to be for roller skating dates. That's for sure. It's going to be for a real grown-up love affair with real grown-up consequences and the potential for the kind of heartbreak that fits me like a wetsuit at this point. I just knew it. So, you know where this story's going, right? I married the guy. We were ridiculously different, but somehow we blended to create a life I'd only dreamed of. We turned into one of those couples, you know. We worked together, we played together, we did everything together. And I know it sounds cheesy, so please don't roll your eyes, but we really were soulmates. Then about 5 years later, he really blew my mind. Ami planned a surprise trip to France for my birthday. First, he psyched me out by telling me we were going to San Francisco for the weekend. And I was so clueless that when we got to LAX, I asked, Air France goes to San Francisco? Then he handed me a little scrapbook. It had details about every moment we were going to be in France, starting with our dinner at the Jules Verne restaurant on top of the Eiffel Tower. I think. We took the bullet train from Paris to the Loire Valley. We took the bullet train from Paris to the Loire Valley for what Ami knew was my wildest fantasy. A week of hot air ballooning. Every day we floated from one chateau to another. Then, on my actual birthday, Ami planned a special luncheon for me. As the balloon baskets gently settled onto the parkland behind Chateau Chenonceau, the only sound was the popping of champagne corks. My favorite sound. And it was as if my fairy godmother had gotten there before us. Tables had been set up and were draped in crisp white linens, set with crystal goblets and candelabras. 2 waiters were standing ready with hors d'oeuvres on silver trays, and caviar on toast points, and shrimp in tiny mushroom caps. I mean, he really thought of everything. And then a uniformed chef appeared from the bushes carrying a huge silver tray and said, Mesdames, salmon poché le mode de Versailles. Bon anniversaire. He served us that salmon and an astonishing 7 courses of French classic dishes paired with 7 wines. Really? Pinch me. We're in France, speaking French and eating French food on the lawn of a French chateau. Oh la la, je t'aime, ami. And 15 years later, he was gone.
It's amazing how people have no idea.
Miriam Horowitz began a 12-step program for recovering shy adults 6 years ago. Miriam is happy to report that she has successfully graduated from the program. When Miriam meets new people, they can't believe that she was ever afraid to speak up. Part of her recovery included getting out of her comfort zone by taking acting classes at Orange Coast and Saddleback colleges. Tonight is Miriam's first time performing with the Theater Guild, and we hope to see her in many more productions.
My mother was my best friend, and her love had a huge impact on my philosophy of life. My mother lived a full 93 years, and it was a blessing to spend so many energetic and inspiring moments dancing, cooking, laughing, and sharing with each other. My sons have told me a story about a famous baseball player named Satchel Paige. Satchel Paige pitched in the 1950s until he was nearly 50 years old. However, born into a rough area of Mobile, Alabama, Satchel never actually knew his birth date. When someone once asked him how old he was, he responded, "How old would you be if you didn't know how old you were?" I wonder how Mom would have answered that question. My mother lived to be very old, and a great lesson I learned from her is that I should always remain young in energy, outlook, and in spirit. She never lost her desire to dance, to sing out of key, to try new recipes, and to share her love with the babies of a new generation. Oh, and she never hesitated to give people a piece of her mind. I remember when she insisted her cookies were better than mine. I didn't think so, but I didn't dare argue with her. Well, what would have been the point? Like my mother, I am inspired to remain forever young at heart. I was blessed with my mother for so many full years, and I look forward to continuing her legacy by also singing and dancing through life. She taught me to continue to challenge myself by getting out of my comfort zone and trying new adventures, such as my storytelling debut tonight. She would be so proud of the me I am today.
Diane has been a member of the Theater Guild for 3 years, but she's new to the I Am Me First family, and we welcome her. She will share a beautiful story of her son. Butterflies have a significant meaning to her, as they often appear and fly around her, seeming to imply, "Hi, Mom, let's hug and smile together for a few minutes."
Child loss is a loss like no other. There will never come a day, hour, minute, or second I stop loving and stop thinking about our son. He passed away just a few years ago, our only child. Our culture isn't so great about hearing about children gone too soon, but that doesn't stop me from saying my son's name and sharing his love and light everywhere I go. My son's life was cut irreversibly short, but his love lives on forever. Though I will grieve the death of our son forever, and then some, it does not mean my life is lacking happiness and joy. Quite the contrary, but it took a while to get there. My life is richer now. I live from a deeper place. I love deeper still. Because I grieve, I also know a joy like no other. The joy I experience now is far deeper and more intense than the joy I experienced before my loss. Such is the magical transformation of grief. Because I've clawed my way from the depth of unimaginable pain, suffering, and sorrow again and again, when joy comes, however and whenever it does, it's a joy that reverberates through every pore of my skin and every bone in my body. I feel all of it deeply, the love, the grief, the joy, the pain. I embrace and thank every morsel of it. My life now is richer and more vibrant and fuller, not despite my loss, but because of it. In grief, there are gifts, sometimes many. These gifts don't in any way make it all worth it, but I am grateful beyond words for each and every gift that comes my way. I bow my head to each one and say thank you, thank you, thank you, because there is nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, I take for granted. Don't take any child or loved one for granted. Tomorrow is not promised to anyone. Take each chance you have to hug your child or your loved one and tell them that you love them. Just do it. I love my son past the moon, and I miss him beyond the stars. I exist in two places, here and where he is. A piece of my heart lives in heaven. He is my son. And you, Paul, left this world, but you forgot to tell my heart how to live without you. Thank you.
A woman of few words. When asked about how she wanted to be introduced, she said, Lisa Bender, 71. I am an introvert who pushes herself to do things like this. We felt we needed to add that Lisa is an active part of Theater Guild. She's always willing to write or perform. Lisa is also heading up the Theater Guild Academy this year. Tonight, Lisa is feeling somewhat nostalgic.
Again, I'm Lisa, and I've been married to my husband, Bruce, for nearly 45 years. I could wax eloquently about him, but I'm not going to. He doesn't need a dating profile, and he's not available. So I wanted to talk about a different kind of love, nostalgic love. About 5 years ago, I received a package in the mail from my college boyfriend. It was somewhat of a shock. We hadn't had contact for decades. He just cleared out his father's estate and found some pictures he thought I might like to have. I didn't ask him how he found me from the East Coast to the West Coast, but hey. I had thought about him occasionally as I still had his mother's roasting pan. So every time I roasted a kosher turkey or made brisket, I thought of him. So we began to email each other. We caught up on each other's families, careers, marriages, exchanged holiday greetings. And even though I hadn't seen him for 40 years, we have what I am calling nostalgic love for each other. We can see our youth through each other's eyes. Tons of shared and precious memories. Back then, I had long, straight hair, was curvy, took dance with the Albany Dance School, was energetic, Phi Beta Kappa, and I had a fair amount of parent resentment. He and I were both culturally aligned with our shared politics. Together, we also saw Broadway plays, ate ethnic food, smoked pot, attended Shabbat services, and nearly joined a commune in Hawaii. But that is a whole nother story. Instead, we spent 3 months on the road going cross-country in his new Volvo that constantly overheated. But this nostalgic love gives me joy. I get to have youthful abandon again. I get to fantasize without harm. I get to see myself in my youth. Momentarily, I can forget about my wrinkles, my surgery scars, my thinning hair, my sagging boobs and arms. Life was pretty carefree back then, with infinite possibilities for the future. It's fun to linger a while and to be youthful again. This nostalgic love has its own place within me. It can't be taken away. It can emerge when I'm alone or when I'm daydreaming, and I can conjure it up. A while back, he was to visit California from the East Coast. I asked him and his wife to dinner. He said yes, and she said no. She was definitely not into our nostalgic love. Perhaps this love is not meant to pierce reality. It exists only in our hearts and minds. And when we try to remember those days in September that were so sweet and tender. Remember my husband, Bruce? He's fine with my nostalgia. I know he has some of his own. What about you?
My wonderful new friend Ellie is new to the woods and new to acting. Ellie shares her time between Arizona and Laguna Woods. We hope that someday she'll spend all of her time here. She's been a wonderful addition to the group and a great assistant to me on this project.
I know. This is supposed to be a story of love. But for me, I have to start with what is not love. You know, I'll give you a little fact. Over 65% of all mental health professionals have some trauma history in their childhood, and I am no exception to that. Now, I'm not trying to look for pity, and I certainly don't see myself as a victim, but I have come to love the hard way, taking many detours, tripping, falling many times, making some very painful and poor choices. I guess that's what happens when you don't know what love is. It's commonly known that the first experience of love for many is through the mother. The place of a mother in a daughter's life is very powerful. But did you know that the love of some mothers could poison a child? But I want to share with you how I was able to discover the antidote that saved my toxic life. You see, my mother was somewhat of a terrorist at times. And when the terrorist mommy was on the battlefield, my family felt like a war zone. I survived my childhood by using very keen senses for danger. I could sniff out my mother's anger long before she got there. You had to stay ahead of it or there would be hell to pay. My brain got somewhat programmed into living life limbic. Fight, flight, or freeze. Managing her overshadowed my growth as an individual with thoughts, desires, and emotions of my own. So here's not love. Not love. Having no voice of my own, being expected to have no needs, and deciding early on it would just be easier never to have any. Not that surprising that I picked a career where all my focus was listening to the needs of others. Not love. Seldom being asked who I thought I was. Rather, I was told who I was. And sometimes I was told I was fat or stupid. being assaulted verbally, physically, emotionally. Not love. Not being heard about foods I didn't like. Instead, being forced to eat food that most any child would not want to eat. Those pickled beets, deep, scary purple, hard to chew and harder to swallow. Or the liver, sloppy and slimy brown with a horrible rancid smell. Just talking about it makes me want to gag. Watching my mother, seldom listening to my father, and watching my father silently bystand her abuse. He used alcohol and lots of it to numb his anger and sadness, and eventually he broke free of her compassionless hold by dying at 63 years of age. That was a tough one for me, the recurring notion that the wrong parent had died. What a relief when I started therapy during my failing marriage and my shrink leaned into me and said softly, "Why, Ellie, your mother is crazy. And you need to remember her terrifying craziness certainly didn't start with her." Being given permission to reframe my mother's cruelty into an untreated illness was like being given the elixir of healing, and I was able to forgive. And I realized that blaming my mother actually only makes things worse. And I realized that continuing to do that is just another negative way to cling to her. Once I let her go, I became free to hear the message and receive the gift, the blessing of my childhood. So here is my definition of love. Love is listening, pure and simple. You know, people come to see me and pay me an exorbitant amount of money to do nothing but listen to them. That's how rare a commodity listening can be. Love, through listening to understand, knows that there are no winners or losers in an intimate or difficult conversation or argument. Either you both win or you both lose. Love can wait and take a back seat to hear the other's experience, to hold it on high as the other's truth. Love holds the sacred space, creates the emotional safety zone, and love can sit with the silence until the other gets it out. Love doesn't judge the other's perspective as right or wrong. Rather, love just accepts it as it is. And love respectfully waits to respond, giving time for the other to be heard and therefore see themselves as loved. So, every time you might feel compelled to drive your point of view forward, like it's the right point of view or the truth, you have pushed love away and lost a heavenly opportunity. There is my truth, your truth, and God's truth, and the three may have nothing in common. Most importantly, when you truly love, you listen way more than you speak. Trust me on this. I graduated from the University of Hard Knocks with a minor in not love and a major in love. Thank you for being great listeners to my story. For once, this is me first. Phil is a transcontinental Easterner, lifelong New York Yankee fan, except during the 1957 World Series where he rooted for the Braves. He's been doing comedy since that year, honing an original, self-deprecating style which he has presented on stage since the 70s. Phil also managed to produce and host an NPR-affiliated radio show for 12 years. Today, he is involved in publishing humor books on Amazon, known as his Boomer series.
The energy of love is perfect and extends from the beginning to the end of time. That's what popped in my head one early morning way back when. So when we experience those little installments of love, like that warm glow you get from the girl at the dry cleaners, a glow you get shaking your buddy's hand at his bachelor party, or having lunch with your brother who you haven't seen in a while, we know that the energy of love is perfect. So in the blink of an eye, we get a taste of love infinitum. It may be phileo or agape love, natural or supernatural love. See, I can't separate the two since I married Cherie. I knew her warm lips carried the spirit that created the cosmos which incorporates love. I knew that the magic of the first kiss from Cherie, I knew the magic of the first kiss that came from Cherie, and Cherie came from God. I must say, I'm no Bible scholar, but that early morning, that early summer juncture, on her dimly lit patio, 2 crickets riffing for us, the temperature and the time perfect, I knew love. But getting back to now, I'm going through family photographs, and I see a picture of me from 1964, when I was 13. I see a buck-toothed, big-eared, big-headed kid in a portrait for graduation from middle school. Except we didn't have middle school. I don't know what that was. I'm not suggesting I went unloved. I felt the love of my family, even if it was less love because I was not the firstborn. My 6-year-old brain did not understand the old world number 1 concept. I did not love the kid in that picture until I was 65. You see, the natural world clouds or blocks real love, whether or not it's brotherly love, sisterly love, love from parents, or romantic love. In 1964, I asked myself, how can you love a scared little guy deprived of handsomeness and athleticism? That smiling kid is now frozen in time. But for the first time, I love that kid. Feeling that love has cleansed my soul. Phileo or agape, this was new and wonderful. Maybe self-love has helped me conquer close to 100% of my OCD and minor autism. And I don't know if self-love can heal my minor dyslexia. But for now, I love this moment, and I love the me that I have become.
Carol has lived in Laguna Woods for over 2 years. Carol has performed in 3 productions with the Theater Guild. She's new to the IME family, and she's a wonderful addition. Carol says that the Guild has been a great source of creativity, inspiration, and friendship. Welcome, Carol. Here's her love story.
Hello. I'm here to share a love letter with you. Dear Joe, how do I love thee? Let me count the ways. The moment I walk through your door, you always greet me with bouquets of brightly colored blooms and exotic plants. It's such a lovely way to brighten my day, and I truly appreciate it. You've created a whimsical, almost magical atmosphere with hand-painted signs and unique artwork strewn about. You welcome me with open arms, as if I was a treasured friend or a favorite child. It always feels like I'm taking a journey back in time whenever I visit, back to a bygone era of simpler, more innocent times. I love how you always manage to surprise me and delight me. You inspire me to step out of my box and try something new. Remember last Christmas when you introduced me to those rosemary-infused nuts? And now I can't get enough of them. You convinced me to try them with that smooth Japanese whiskey, and that is a match made in heaven. But that's where you get me, because as soon as I get hooked on these new treats, they vanish, never to be seen again. You surround yourself with positive, cheerful friends dressed in hibiscus patterned shirts. They always greet me with a smile and are generally interested in how I'm doing. Sadly, you had to part ways with some of your lady friends, but that's a story for another day. But I really enjoyed the unique recipes they always shared with me. You constantly teach me about new California and global wines at very affordable prices, like the Paso Dragon Cabernet you turned me on to last summer. It's become one of my favorite wines, and I love sharing it with family and friends. So, as I look around at your faces, I realize I could get very jealous, because I know quite a few of you have been with my Joe, men and women. I call him TJ, you might call him Jacques, or Giotto, or Jose. But by now, I hope you realize that my Joe is no ordinary Joe. He's Trader Joe. Don't take my word for it. There's an entire cookbook dedicated to all things Trader Joe's, and there's quite a few additions. Joe is a true gem. How has this impacted my life? I hate grocery shopping. If it wasn't for Trader Joe's, there would be many nights when we would not have dinner on the table. But Trader Joe's has turned grocery shopping into a fun, unique experience. I've also compiled a list of my top 10 favorite things for you to pick up the next time you're in Trader Joe's. So the next time you go in, savor the experience. And I hope you walk in with a newfound appreciation of Trader Joe's. And by the way, tell them Carol said hi. Thank you.
This next story was written by a wonderful Theater Guild veteran, Bill Reed. Unfortunately, Bill cannot be with us tonight. Our Theater Guild friend Tommy DeFina has stepped in to read Bill's story. You may remember Tommy from the holiday show this year. Thanks to Tommy for helping us out at the last minute. Enjoy Bill's story.
Hello, everyone. Nice being here tonight. Okay, let's talk about my true love. We know each other so well that we can almost anticipate each other's moves. When I first met her, I fell in love. Or should I say, we both fell in love. We met in a store in San Juan Capistrano, and she ended up coming home with me that evening. Thank you. In fact, many of you might not know this, but she moved in with me that day and has been with me ever since. All right, thank you. She has become the love of my life, and we share a lot of the same things together. To me, she is really just so beautiful. Although she does have a strange black mark on one of her legs, and the pupil of one of her eyes has black spots. However, the doctor doesn't have anything concerned about it, so it just really really doesn't bother me. No. You know, I just love it when I do all the grocery shopping for the both of us. And I prepare all the meals. And she is very grateful for it. No, she is, yes. We both eat a lot of chicken and fish, as it is very healthy for the both of us. You know, it is. In fact, our very favorite is either fresh or canned tuna. You know, she likes to watch me organize the food in the kitchen too. She also likes to stick around the house and watch me do the chores or when I'm working in the office. In fact, she talks to me a lot, and I think she likes the attention. I always drive her to the shop when she gets her nails done, as she doesn't drive. No. Everyone there just loves her, just loves her. We both enjoy watching TV together in the living room after dinner. Oh boy. Although she's not too fond of sports, unless there's a lot of action going on. She really prefers the news and some sitcoms, or sometimes she'll just fall asleep in my lap. When it started to get cold out this winter, she surprised me with a beautiful coat. Oh my God. And she wears it well and it looks so fantastic on her. I just love it. I mean, not to get too personal, but during the night, it's cold weather, where we're in bed watching TV together, she often sprawls out next to me and snuggles against my side. I think it's a sign of true love, really. I put my arms around her very tight, and she just totally loves it. It puts a smile on my face. I have to say, she's just so precious. You know, this is difficult. In closing, I am just so happy to share with all of you that my sweetheart has 4 beautiful legs, a furry white and soft coat that's orange and gray, and it's a calico coat. And she purrs a lot when we're bonding together. Her name is Chelsea, the cat. Thank you.
Well, our stories have been told, and we thank you for your support and appreciation, but we're not done yet. We just have a couple final thoughts for you. We want to thank Susan for our help backstage. We want to thank Joe for our lights and our sound. Joe showed up well. Thanks for giving us a wonderful video, and thanks to you. And before we bring our cast out, Ellie and I have one final thought that we'd like to share. This is a beautiful poem that we found. It's called Words by Donna Ashworth.
I have been her, I have been she, I have been them, and now I'm me.
I have been out, I have been in, I felt defeat, and I've known the wind.
I have held joy and shouldered grief. I've had my share of changed beliefs.
I have been hurt, and I have been high. I've heard the answers to what and to why.
I know the loss, and I know the gain. I know that we all bleed the same.
I have been her, and I have been she, and I have been them, and now I am me.